excellence trainer and high performance coach, and I'd like to start tonight's seminar on mental imagery and rehearsal for success with a bit of light activity. So if you don't mind just standing up, stand up if you don't mind, and we're going to do a bit of light activity. But before we do some light activity, what I'd like you to do is just read this if you can. Just read what's on here. So it says mental imagery. Just take a moment to read that, okay, and notice that. Now what I want you to do is to just stand in that place where you're comfortable, with your feet shoulder width apart. Just bring your arm out and just circle your arms forward and circle your arms backwards. Now circle forwards and circle backwards. Now one arm forward and one backwards, and the other arm forward, the other one's backwards, and backwards and forwards again, and backwards and forwards again. Now what I'd like you to do is just lock your hands together and push out on the toes, push up as high as you can, just gently come forward and relax. Now what I'd like you to do, you place one hand on your forehead and one on the back of your head like that, and just gently hold, and then just loosen your arms, place one hand on your forehead and one gently on the back of your head, and hold, and just relax. Okay, I'd like you now to, once again, lock your hands, twist out, and now what I want you to do is just reach into the air, big breath in, and just cross your arms forward, breathing in through your nose, and out through your mouth, in through your nose, and out through your mouth, in through your nose, and out through your mouth. Now what I want you to do is just lift one leg up and clap underneath, one leg up and clap underneath, one leg up, clap underneath, one leg up and clap underneath. Okay, keep doing that. Now what I want you to do is tap the inside of your foot. So bringing your foot up and tapping the inside, bringing your foot up, tap the inside. Okay, it's a bit of a shake. Arms forward again and backwards. One arm forward, one backwards, and one arm forward, one backwards. Bit of a shake and a loosen. A bit of mental activity to get some blood flow to the brain and mental clarity. Now take the time to read this again. It should be a lot clearer. So now we should be completely focused and crystal clear on the seminar at hand. So fully focused. But what I want you to do first of all is to write down what you want to gain from tonight's seminar. So what do you want to gain from tonight's seminar? You've taken the time, and I thank you for taking the time to tune into tonight's seminar. It's a very powerful one, but write down what you want from tonight's seminar. Where do you want to be at the close of play in tonight's seminar that you aren't already? It's going to be a very powerful seminar. Mental rehearsal and visualization is used amongst the best athletes in the world, and has been used with the best athletes in the world for many years for success. But the skill has been transferred across a broad range of areas like business, also personal development, in therapy. It can be transferred anywhere. Certainly in my profession as a coach, I've helped people in business with presentations, I've helped them with interviews, I've helped people in the highest level of sport as well. I've also used these skills and transferred them to therapy as well. They're a very powerful skill set. Can help you with confidence, with motivation, a very powerful skill set. And the irony is that we do this process anyway without realizing it. It's one of the first processes that we do when we first come out of the womb as a baby. One of the key processes we do, except it's a bit of a travesty that in mainstream education, certainly not where I went to school, you aren't taught to visualize and mental rehearse. And when I say we do it automatically anyway, in a way it's hit and miss, because we do it for some positive outcomes, yet we also do it in certain situations where we're not supporting the outcome that we want. And we're going to talk about how we can achieve outcomes by using this process, how you can achieve your goals by using mental imagery and visualization and rehearsal. Very, very powerful process that you can use. Having used this process and seen people perform above and beyond anyone's expectation, it is a very powerful process. Yet, let me just share with you a story of one of the clients that I work with that I helped with this process. Now, I've helped many clients over many years. I'm going to give you an example of how powerful this can be. Just imagine this scenario. Imagine you're in this scenario. Imagine your professional career is on the line. Imagine you've got a test coming up for your professional career. If you don't get through the test, then your professional career isn't going to be where you want it to be. Added to that, the outcomes of passing the test. Financial outcomes, professional outcomes, you've got outcomes such as house, car. The guy was planning a wedding, and big outcomes riding on passing this test. Now, let me share this story with you. I get a call a few years ago now. It was a Wednesday morning, I'll not forget it because I was coming out of a meeting. I get a call, so I pick up the phone, and this woman phones me up. She says, "My husband really needs your help." I said, "Okay, what's happened?" She said, "Well, can you help him?" I said, "Well, tell me what it is." She says, "Well, he's got a test a week from now, or 5 days from now. It's for the military, he's going for promotion, he needs to get through." I said, "And how can I be of any assistance?" She said, "Well, you've been recommended, I know you do therapy, I know you do psychology, he needs to do a physical assessment, he's got to run 2 miles, I think it was at the top of my head, in a certain time, and at the moment, he's just gone to pieces. The guy has absolutely gone to pieces. He's really struggling to focus, he doesn't know what to do. We're running out of time, the test is on Monday, it's Wednesday, we don't know what to do." So my response to that was, well, if he wants to work with me, he's going to have to pick up the phone and call me. He's a man, he's an adult, he should be able to pick up the phone and give me a call if he needs help. She goes, "There's only one problem. He doesn't know I'm calling you and he doesn't buy into therapy and psychology." Well, I said, well, that's his problem, not mine. A few hours later, I get a call. He'd phoned me up and said, "Look, I'll be honest with you, I don't buy into all this therapy, psychology, yet in saying that, I've got nothing to lose, it's last chance to lose." So I said, "Well, okay, we'll book you in." So I booked him in on a Thursday night, he comes along, I said, "What do you want to achieve? What's the outcome? What are you looking to achieve?" He told me, "You don't understand, Jim, if I don't get through this test, I'm not going to be able to get the promotion. I get the promotion, I'm riding on paying for the wedding, we're going to move to a bigger house, the family to a bigger house, there's so much riding in this promotion." So he's thinking outcome. Now, I'm a big believer in setting goals, having outcomes. Those who know me, who work with me, you'll know I'm a big believer in setting outcomes, set big outcomes. Yet in saying that, I'm also a big believer in rolling up your sleeves and focusing on the process, the steps to get to the outcome, which I'm going to talk about throughout the seminar as we go along. So on Thursday evening, we actually use this technique here, as well as a couple other techniques, but this was the instrumental technique in helping him. So we went through mental rehearsal. So at that point there, we can't do any physiological training. The trainers watching this DVD will tell you that physical training a few days before the test is not a good idea. Why? Because if nothing else, you'll probably pull up with an injury and that'll be it. So really we need to rely on the mind. This is where the mind comes into its own, our most powerful resource. So we did mental rehearsal, we focus on the outcome but put it to one side. Like planting a seed. We put it in the ground, then we water it, we nurture it, we believe, and then it sprouts with fruit. So I said, put your outcome to one side and write the time that you want to achieve, and put it on one side. And the time was, if I remember correctly, about 10:41 for 2 miles, give or take a few seconds here and there. Anyway, I gave him some skills to work with between the Thursday working with me and the Monday, because I'm a big believer in carrying on the work, the mental work. I'm a big believer in mental skills training being an ongoing process. I'm a big advocate that mental skills processes should be an ongoing process. Just like you wouldn't eat one nutritious meal or drink one nutritious drink or juice and transform your health, just like you wouldn't go to the gym or do some exercise and be physically super fit. It's a start, and a positive start in the right direction, have a big impact, yet it's one session. So I advocated carry on doing that as often as you can between the Thursday and the Monday. Monday comes along, I send him a text, how'd you get on? He goes, "Bad news." Text comes back. I said, "Oh no." And I said, "What happened?" He goes, "The test got cancelled." I said, "Okay, do you want to come and see me in the evening? If you want, you're more than welcome to." He goes, "No, I feel confident, I've been doing my rehearsal, I'm going to rehearse again." Tuesday, I check my phone, I get a text, "I smashed it," he says. And ironically, he got within, I think, a second of the time that we'd visualised. So he smashed it by 47 seconds, which was amazing. And by breaking that, he ended up getting the job, and the rest was history. So what I'm saying is that we big on outcomes, have the outcomes, write down your goals. It's really important that you write down your goals, yet in saying that, we have to then put it to one side and focus on the process. That's what we're going to cover tonight. Tonight is about how we can focus on the process. And where, in my experience, a lot of businesses go wrong, such as sales and presentations, and the people I work with to help them achieve their targets, yes, it's great being target-driven, but sometimes the target itself overwhelms people. And overwhelming people, putting under a lot of pressure, and a lot of pressure, people go to type, which means they go back to a point that they weren't confident in the area. It's just like, for example, if you take a professional footballer, to use an analogy. Let's say a professional footballer, he's got a ball, okay, here's a ball, it's a big World Cup final, he's got to take a penalty, or she's got to take a penalty, there's hundreds of thousands of people watching him or her, millions around the world watching the TV audience. He or she puts the ball down, and in training, the professional footballer will score 99 times out of 100. Yet, in a cup final, we've seen some of the best performers in the world actually miss the target and look almost uncoordinated as they strike the ball. Now, ask yourself that question. Why do you think in a big tournament the performer will miss the target and in training they'll score 99 times out of 100? Why? Okay, the answer is pretty logical. It comes down to pressure. But what is pressure? Still 12 yards away from the goal, yet in saying that, pressure is what goes through our own mind. So pressure comes in the form of expectation. Pressure can come in the form of internal and external as well. Yet in saying that, of course, we can't completely recreate the situation of a cup final, but what we can do, because the mind can't tell the difference between reality and non-reality, is get as close as possible as we can, and then focus on the process. Some days you'll put the effort in, you do the best you can, and sometimes you're beaten by a better opponent today. You might strike a ball, the keeper flies and saves it, you accept that. Or you prepare for your interview and you go in there and you give it the best you can. Yeah, in saying that on the day, it's not meant to be. We can live with that, obviously disappointed, but we can live with that. But going in there and knowing we could have done more is the biggest travesty. So it's a very powerful process we're going to take you through and teach you how to do. A very powerful process that is easy to use. It's easy to use, I say, because you do it automatically anyway, and you realise once you've done this that you do it automatically. All we're doing tonight is giving you the technique in a structure where you can be more consistent and do it as often as you want. And if you're a coach or therapist, you can use it with your clients, no doubt, or you might want to use it for as a manager with your staff, or if you're in sales with your staff, for yourself, for your own personal development, or you might want to, as a teacher, help your students. It's entirely up to you. Or you might have some family going for a driving test or anything like that. It's entirely up to you, but it's a very, very powerful process. And you're more than welcome to email me if you wish, if you want more information on the process. Yeah, in saying that, I'm going to demonstrate it shortly. It's a very powerful process. And do you ever find yourself in a situation where you are kicking yourself, literally, because you know you could have done better? Anyone ever found themselves that way? I'm sure you found yourself that way. Or you might sort of see someone else who seems to do things quite effortlessly. You look at them and think, how do they do that? How do they do that meeting, that interview? It just seems so effortless. Do you ever see people like that? Or do you ever find yourself in a situation where you feel overwhelmed and think, well, I'm not so sure I can do this? I'm sure we all found ourselves in situations like that, and sometimes the key is to put, like I said earlier, the outcome to one side and focus on the steps in achieving the goal that you want to achieve. You're more likely to achieve a goal if you focus on what we're going to do tonight on the actual process itself. And to give you an illustration and an understanding of just how powerful the mind is, let me tell you about a study they did. And they grabbed a ball again. Okay, in the University of America, they did a study. They took 3 groups of basketballers. 3 groups of basketballers. One group practiced shooting hoops from free throw line physically. Practiced over 6 weeks. I think it was 3 or 4 times a week. Another group practiced visually in their mind, no physical practice, and the other group practiced, or didn't practice at all, I should say. After 6 weeks, guess which group had improved the most? The ones who practiced physically, the ones who practiced mentally, or the ones that didn't practice at all? Yeah, you guessed it. The ones who visualized improve the most. And you might be saying, well, why would that be the case? Because practice makes permanent. What we put in our mind, input in, input out. So physically practicing is great, and we can improve through trial and error and learning, yet he's saying that old habits die hard. Visualization creates what we call neural pathways in the brain. And those neural pathways in the brain are linked to experience as well. So ultimately, in the end, if you're visualizing getting the ball in the hoop, you're building neural pathways, and the mind can't differentiate reality and non-reality. So if you're practicing the technique in the right way, you're likely to improve even more than what you would do physically practicing. I'm not saying not to physically practice. Yes, we need to physically practice as well. What I am saying is that sometimes it's equally, if not more beneficial, to practice mentally as well. Do both. Sometimes you might be in a rush, you might be busy, or it might not be logistically possible to practice physically. You can practice mentally if you wish. And this is a technique that is quite easy and user-friendly to use. It's a very powerful technique that we can use to give you the best possible chance of succeeding. And I always say that the key for anyone is to give themselves the best possible chance to succeed. So now I'm going to talk through the process. So if you haven't already got a pen and paper, grab a pen and paper now. Participate in the exercises, because if you just take on board what I say, then some things might resonate, some might not, some things might interest you. Yet in saying that, ultimately you probably retain 4 to 10% of the information next week. If you physically practice and you link this and associate this to your own experiences, then you're likely to maintain a lot more information, which is what you want, ultimately. So get a pen and paper ready, and I'm going to take you through 4 steps, a 4-step process to mental rehearsal and visualization. The first step in the process is to create a well-formed outcome. And what I mean by that, call it a goal, whatever you want to put it, however you want to put it, it's entirely up to you, but create a target to aim for, whatever that might be. So for example, if you're doing a presentation, you might have a goal at the end of the presentation. If you have an interview, your goal might be to get the job. If you're playing a sporting event, your goal might be to score a number of goals, to win the game. So be very clear about what you want to achieve, whatever that goal might be. So you're doing a presentation and you might want the delegates to go away learning certain objectives from the presentation, or you might be in sales and you want to achieve 10 sales, or you might be rehearsing in your goal throughout the day. You might have sales targets and that's your goal. What we need to do once you've got your goal is to put it to one side. So you put your goal to one side after you've created a well-formed outcome. Then what we need to do is we do a script. And the script is being a director of your own film. In essence, you're directing your own film by writing a script. What I mean by that, almost like a Hollywood director, you direct your own scripts. So I'm going to give you an example. It could be a technical element, or it could be a process. It's entirely up to you. The key part of the script is to script out the process of achieving the outcome. So for example, if I was coaching someone who's delivering a presentation, we might recreate the environment where they're going to do the presentation. So they might write down the colour of the walls, they might write down the number of people that are going to be there, they might write down all the surroundings like flip charts and everything that's around them, the environment, and after that they write a script. And the script might entail what body language, the posture they're going to use. It could be shoulders back, standing in a certain position, projecting their voice in a certain way. It could be that we script certain questions. It could be that we go through the actual seminar content in their mind. So the key part of the script is link it to the outcome that you're looking for, which is important, okay? And you might be saying now, well, I'm doing a presentation, I've got an interview, but I've got no idea what the environment's going to be like. That's fair enough. That's understandable, because in certain situations, particularly when I work with sports people, they might not have played on a certain ground before, yet all we can do is look at variable permutations. But what we want to do is control the controllables. So one thing that we know we can do for sure, for example, is the sort of clothes we're going to wear, the colour of clothes we're going to wear, the tonality of our voice, our posture. These are controllable factors. So within our script, we can really focus on controllable factors, but we can also add in other factors and look at various permutations. So for example, if I'm working with an athlete, we might talk about how, okay, if it rains, if it snows, if it's warm, variable permutations, is windy, so we can look at variable permutations. The more permutations we can look at, the more familiar the mind is. It's a bit like in sport, we call it the home ground advantage. Remember, the mind likes familiarity. Let me give an example. Let's say your boss called you late tonight and says, I need you to go do a sales call or presentation. I need you to go work in another location you've not been before. If we're honest, we're going to have a bit of apprehension because we've not been there before. So it's unfamiliar to the mind. So you've got to think, even if you've got a sat nav, it doesn't really make too much of a difference to a certain extent because in your mind, you're not familiar with that. Yet in saying that, if you've been to a certain location 10 times before, you have got an awareness of what time you have to wake up, how long it will take to drive there, the roads, so you're more comfortable with that. It's a bit like when you first learned to drive a car. Take your mind back to when you first learned to drive a car. What was it like? It was a conscious process. First year, second year, you might have stalled, then you watched, you learned, you practiced, and now it's an unconscious competence. Now you can get in the car and drive without realising sometimes certain traffic lights you've gone past, shops you've gone past, or the process itself. It becomes an unconscious process. So the mind, and what we want to do, use visualization to help these processes that we visualize become unconscious processes, so we can master them and be the very best you can be. So we start with writing a script. And to give you an example, in sport, for example, a script I might work with is a technique like striking a ball. So I might get a football and say, okay, you know, place the ball on the floor, put your foot alongside the ball, your arms out for balance, head down and strike it. So it could be golf, the position of the feet, swinging of the club, it could be basketball, positioning of the hand. So it all depends on the technique itself, or we could actually visualize a game itself. From the very beginning, the whistle goes, go through it. And the same applies to business. In the presentation, you can rehearse the presentation from the very beginning to the very end, or you can isolate technical elements of the presentation you'd like to learn, like the way you stand, the way you project your voice. It's entirely up to you what you do and how you do it. Yet, the key is your script support the outcome you're looking for. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And the easier it becomes, the more benefit we'll get from doing the process. The analogy I use, it's a bit like getting in the car without having a destination to go to. How would you feel if you jumped in the car without a destination, or if you didn't know where you were going? Not very good, would you? So you've got a destination. And how effective would your sat-nav be if you didn't have a destination? It wouldn't be effective at all. So the destination is your goal, or one of the outcomes, which you could use. And the analogy I use with your sat-nav, the destination being your goal or an outcome where you want to go, you need an address. You need a postcode, as well as a postcode, a street address, maybe a street number as well. You need to be able to program it. So the destination is your outcome, or at least one of the outcomes, and the postcode, the street address, they're all the script to get you there. And the mind works in the same way. So think you've got your goal, you put it to one side, and then you've got to focus on the process of getting there, your scripts. And using the sat-nav analogy, when you're following the sat-nav, you're not focusing on the outcome, you're focusing on the roads and streets that you need to get to the destination you're going to. And what we're doing in the mind by doing this process is building what we call neural pathways. Now what's really important before we move forward is states in a positive. What do I mean by positive? Not very positive, it's a fabulous day, it's a great day. What I'm saying is what you want to happen. Let me give an example. Years ago I was doing some coach education for football coaches who were training young footballers, and they would stand at the sideline like that, shouting at the young players, "Don't lose the ball!" And the first thing the players would do, you guessed that, lose the ball. If they say don't lose the ball, it goes through your mind. So what's the more favourable instruction? Keep possession. So the mind can't process and negative instruction. If I say don't think of a blue giraffe, what do you think of? Exactly. So the positive, what you want to happen. It's a bit like if you ever go to the gym and the gym instructor gives you instructions to go on the weights or the rowing machine. You get on the rowing machine, for example, and he says or she says, don't bend your arms, don't bend your neck back, and it confuses you even more. It's better to say keep your arms straight, keep your back straight, your knees bent. The mind can process that. If it's too complicated for a 5-year-old, then it's too complicated for the unconscious mind. Keep it very, very basic and direct for what you want. I'm going to go through this process a couple of times so we can embed it. For now, I'm going to talk us through the process and I'm going to take us back through the process and you can have your pen handy. So that's the script. Having done the script, what we want to do is visualize it like watching a TV. Now, if you're auditory, or even if you're not auditory, you might want to dictaphone your scripts as well. And then you can play your dictaphone back while you're visualizing with your eyes closed, watching some TV script. So you can visualize the script. I said earlier, like if you're teaching someone to kick a ball in football, put the ball down, foot alongside the ball, arms out for balance, head down, strike. Or if you're teaching them to do a presentation, put your shoulders back, feet in a certain position, project your voice in this way. If they're in an interview, sit in this position, rehearse these questions. So you could use the dictaphone if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you, depending on how auditory you are and how comfortable you're doing that. Yet, when you're doing that, visualize yourself like watching a TV screen. So you close your eyes, and you might want to do it now if you want to. I'm going to take us back through the whole process again, but you might want to do it now. So you can visualize yourself doing what you want to do. And at this point here, you take the time to fine-tune the film. So it's like being the director of your own film. At this point, you notice what you see, what you hear, what you feel. Recreate the scenario, any colours, notice what you're wearing, what the people around you are wearing, what it's like, what's being said, any feelings, where the feelings are. So really recreate that like watching a TV screen. Then having done that, when you've got it as you want it, perfect, or as perfect as you want it to be, then we want to go into the here and now. And imagine stepping in with our eyes closed in the here and now and actually live it like the here and now. So rather than an external image, it becomes the here and now. So if you're preparing for an interview, you might sit down or lie down and just rehearse sitting down and answering questions, focusing on your tone of voice, your posture, being calm and relaxed, whatever state of mind you want to be in. If it's a presentation, focusing on the way you stand, any gestures, any movements, and we can start embedding that in the here and now. Once you've done that in the here and now, what we want to do is have 3 scenarios where you're going to do that process. So you might have an interview coming up next week, a week after that, or a presentation coming up 1 week after the other, or a sporting event coming up. It's entirely up to you. And the reason for doing that is to embed it in your unconscious mind. We want it to become an unconscious competence. I say 3 times minimum, as often as you can. It's entirely up to you. How often you do it? Yeah, at least 3 times to embed that. Now I'm going to go through that process again. Shortly, the mental imagery process. I'm going to go through it 2 more times. 1 more time explaining it, then I'm going to take you through in live time so we can really embed that. And if you haven't got a pen, grab a pen, go through the process. It's a very powerful technique. A very, very powerful technique that will give you the best possible chance to succeed in any situation. Okay? But before we go through it again, I'm going to demonstrate an exercise with you. And what I want you to do is, once again, if you don't mind standing up, stand up, if you don't mind. Okay, and just bring your arms in this position. So you're standing up and bring your arms in this position. Okay, so standing up. And what I want you to do, with your eyes open and your feet pointing forwards, keep your feet pointing forwards and your legs pointing forward. I want you to go as far back as you can. Okay, and go as far back as you possibly can. And notice where your hand is. And put an imaginary mark on the wall. okay, where your hand is, okay? So once again, what I want you to do is stand in this position with your feet pointing forward, bring your arms out, and go as far back as you possibly can, and just point an imaginary point in the wall, and just come back. Okay, in the same position, what I'd like to do now is just close your eyes, please. Close your eyes and imagine putting your arms out straight and going back further than you did before. So I want to visualize having your arms out and going back further than you did before. Okay, so visualize yourself going back further and further. Now bring your arms out, your eyes closed, and I want you to go back, your eyes closed, further than you did before. Okay, go back further and further and further. And now I want you to open your eyes and see where your hand is. Okay, the likelihood is, if you've done it correctly, your hand will be in a further position than it was before. We couldn't have done any physiological changes in that time frame, so it was through building a neural pathway in your mind. And that's how powerful visualization and mental rehearsal is. We're building neural pathways all the time. The mind can, through experience, rewire itself and experience new situations, yet the key is to do the processes. So it might be worth doing that process again in your own time, in your own pace, to see how powerful it is. So we're going back to the technique again. So once again, we write our script. So if it's for an interview, a presentation, a sales call, it's entirely up to you. It could be for your driving test, it could be for a test that you've got coming up. It's entirely up to you what you do it for. Or you might have a sporting event, you might be an amateur sports person, a semi-professional, professional, but write your script. Okay? And the script comprises of the environment, and if you haven't been to that environment, say you've got a presentation coming up, I suggest, if possible, drive to the environment and just check it out. Get a feel for it. Go in the room, notice the colours of the world, the feeling, the room temperature, the general environment. Because remember, our mind, we process through our senses, predominantly see, hear and feel, also smell and taste. We process through our senses, and then we have automatic responses. Just like if you were to go out on Saturday evening and walk past a nice restaurant, Italian, an Indian, a Chinese, or you might walk past the chippy on a Friday night. What happens when you do that? Smell, it engages your senses, you might start feeling hungry, your stomach might growl. These are automatic responses. Okay, unconscious responses from the emotional part of the brain, which sends a message to all the senses. Okay, or all the other senses as well. So we process through our senses. So it makes a lot of sense to use our senses and use a creative process to work towards the outcome. So write your scripts. Okay, I said before, if I was helping someone do an interview, I would get them to focus on the environment, focus on how they'd sit, how they'd answer the questions, and sometimes I get people say to me, well, how do you know they're going to ask certain questions? Well, you don't. Nothing's a guarantee in life. Yet in saying that, you'd like to think through experience, you'll have an idea of what they might and might not ask. Yet in saying that, even if they don't ask the questions you prepare for, at least you can prepare a lot of things. And that's the key. And I always say to people, if there was two people going for the same job, the same qualifications, experience, ability, the person who rehearses is going to stand a much better chance than the person who just needs the chance. Maybe the person who doesn't rehearse at all might fluke at once, but consistent results depend on what you put in. What you put in, you get out. So do your script, and having done your script, see yourself like watching a TV screen. Now notice and close your eyes what you see in the screen. So see yourself like watching a TV screen. Notice what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you're wearing, any colours, what's being said, any feelings. Just perfect the image exactly like you want it to be. Brilliant. So perfect that image exactly how you want it to be. And when you've got the image perfect, exactly like you want it to be, what I want you to do is imagine stepping into the film and rehearsing it like the here and now, going through it like the here and now. And just going through that process, okay, like the here and now. Brilliant. After going through the process like the here and now, what I want you to do is embed 3 scenarios where you're going to use the process. So 3 scenarios where you're going to be using the process. Okay, 3 scenarios. And embed that in your unconscious mind. Brilliant. And just come back to the here and now. A bit of a shake. If you're standing up, if you're sitting down. Okay, just a couple of deep breaths. Breathing in through your nose, up through your mouth. A bit of a shake. Okay, I'm going to take you through the process now in real time, like I would do if I'm working with a client, if I'm coaching someone. Obviously, I don't know what you're preparing for, yet in saying that, you can follow as much as you can do. So it's going to be relatively generic. It'll give you an extra understanding of the process itself. Okay, so I'm going to guide you through the 4-step process. So think about it. Think of an outcome that you'd like to achieve. So focus on an outcome that you want to achieve. And let's work towards the outcome. Now take your time, having chosen the outcome that you want to achieve, whatever it is. You might have a presentation coming up, an interview, a test. It's entirely up to you what you do, what you choose. But what I want you to do, having chosen your outcome, is I'm going to guide you through the process. Shortly. Just refine your script. Just take your time. It doesn't need a perfect script at the moment. You can refine it when we wrap up. It's entirely up to you. I guess the other question you might ask, how often should I visualize? As often as you can. How long should the process take? Should it be the equal amount of time it takes in the interview presentation? Well, ideally in some situations, you're insane. It doesn't have to be. In certain situations, for example, a game of football goes for 90 minutes. We don't visualize for 90 minutes. We might visualize for 15 minutes. The key points of the process. In certain situations as well, what I do with certain clients, I get them to visualize even their greatest hits package. So it could be their best presentations or whatever really. But you might be in a situation where you aren't quite sure about how to do a certain process like presenting, then you can study someone else, which we're going to talk about later on. You can model, which is what we do very early on in our life. So write your scripts. Now having written your scripts, I want you to close your eyes and really relax. So just close your eyes and really relax. We do this together. Take a deep breath in. I'm going to count back from 5 to 1. As I count back from 5 to 1, 5, really relax. Let your shoulders relax. 4, just imagine emptying all your thoughts in the bin liner and you can pick them up in 5 minutes if you wish. Let them go for now. You can hear your heart beating, your breathing, just really relax. 3, relax. 2, and 1. And just start by going back to a time in your life where you felt really, really relaxed and calm and at peace with the world. Notice what you see, what you hear, what you feel. Just go back to that time where you felt really calm, relaxed, and at peace with the world. Notice you saw, what you heard, the colours, what you're wearing, the people around you. Just go into a nice, calm, relaxed state. And in that calm, relaxed state, just think of your script, your process towards your outcome. Having done that, I want you to imagine seeing yourself on a TV screen, doing what you want to do, like watching a TV screen. Notice what you see, what you hear, what you feel, and take the time now to get the image perfect of what you want to do. The process of achieving your outcome. Notice every colour, every detail, any sounds, any feelings. Once you've got that perfect, step into the image and imagine living it in the here and now. And just go through the process live, like the here and now. Notice what it feels like, any colours, what you're wearing, the colours, around you the colours, the people around you, any feelings, where the feelings are, any sounds. And now we can think of 3 scenarios where you're going to use that new skill, process or technique and embed that in your unconscious mind. After you've embedded it in your unconscious mind, I want you to gradually come back to the here and now in your own time, in your own pace. Okay? Fantastic. You just have a bit of a shake. Okay, so some questions that you might want answered. Some people, sometimes when I work with them, and you're a coach, you're a therapist, you'll get some people say, I struggle to visualize. We can all visualize. Some of us are more visual than others, yet we can all visualize. One thing to do is to practice your visualization. One of the ways you can do that is start by, well, if you couldn't visualize, how would you know, how could you tell the face of your best friend? But you could start by visualizing, you can do it now, the colour of your front door. So those of you who said you can't visualize, what's the colour of your front door? What's the colour of your car? And you can practice. You might practice visualizing an orange, the size of the orange, make it smaller, make it bigger. So you can practice visualizing. We're not always looking for a HD, 3D film. It's just whatever you can visualize and use whatever sense works for you. Engage all the senses, which is really important to do that. But you can practice visualizing by practicing visualizing things and processes. You can visualize your car, imagine the colour, imagine your front door, imagine visualizing a ball. Just starting basic, visualize a chair. And then you can start incorporating the script in there. That's the practice visualization, and when you're here and your feelings associated to that, which is key. The important thing to know, we do this very early on in life. It's just like a baby. When a baby learns, those who've got children, if you haven't got children, you've been around children, if you're an auntie, an uncle, you'll see, well, one of the miracles in the world is when our being born is a miracle, yet walking and talking is a miracle. And how does a baby learn to walk? Well, predominantly a baby will learn through modelling. So a baby will look at the people around, walking, it might be a parent, friends, whatever. But what happens when the baby first learns to walk? What happens? Of course, he or she falls down. As a parent or a carer, you wouldn't say to your child, give up, don't do it no more. And that's what I say to you. If you don't achieve the outcome, if at first you don't succeed, then pick yourself up and try again. Keep going until you achieve it. This is one way to give yourself the best possible chance. You keep going. I'm a big believer in teaching these skills in schools and colleges. I do talks in schools and colleges, and I bring some of these skills in there because I think that these are very powerful skills to have to improve motivation and confidence, focus, determination, psychological strengths that build character to help young people in the world that we live in today. And there's nothing stopping you from watching this and teaching your own children if you're a teacher. Not that I'm suggesting that the schools do a bad job, teachers work really hard, I've been a teacher myself, but we do work under a lot of constraints as lecturers and teachers do. But I think it's really important to do that. And whenever we get an opportunity, because these are natural and normal processes we do make anyway. And it's a bit of a travesty when we go into the mainstream education system, we don't use our imagination, we call logical sequence left brain. And imagination is much more powerful than logic. You know, logic told us it wasn't possible to fly an aeroplane. Logic will tell you that it's not possible to invent a device that can send a message across the world in a split second. Logic tells us that we can't look at a box that can beam images. Yet they were creations of people's imagination. The structure at the moment, it would have been in someone's imagination. Yet their outcomes, although we need the process to get the outcome. So at the room you're in at the moment, at one point, it was in someone's imagination. So an architect might have had that vision as an outcome. Yet to get to that outcome, they would have needed to build a foundation. You need a carpenter, an electrician, a plumber, a process, a tiler to build the structure. And that's what we're saying here, that the process will take you to the outcome. So when you're building a house, all the people who do the various jobs to build a house, yes, they're aware what the outcome is, yet in saying that, brick by brick, tile by tile, bit by bit, every 1,000-mile journey starts with that first step, and that's the key in visualizing a mental rehearsal. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute by doing this process we're going to become, competent at all things overnight. If you said to me, Jim, could you fly me in a 747 across America tomorrow, I would say no, because I'm not a trained pilot. Yet it's not a question of confidence, it's a question of competence. Now, if I was trained to be a pilot, I'd use this process to learn and learn a lot quicker. Yet, in saying that, what I'm saying is that, most people have got the confidence to do what they want to do. And it's a travesty, a lot of people, they underachieve in life. To give you an example, I was working with a woman recently. She was very competent at her job. She knew her job inside out. Very phenomenal. Yet I said to her, because she had this opportunity for a promotion, why don't you go for it? She goes, well, it involves in presenting. I said, well, you're very knowledgeable. You know your stuff. And she says, well, I don't feel confident doing presentations. I thought, well, that's fair enough. If you don't want the job, then I really want the job, and I really would like to present. I just don't feel confident. It just could never be me. And we've all been in that situation before where we say, it might not be me. It can never be me. Well, why not you, I say. Why not you? And I helped her, and I did some coaching with her. We did visualization, and she visualized. And now she took the job and she's presenting, and presenting very efficiently and effectively. So it wasn't a question of confidence or competence even, it was just a question of her believing. Because really, we learn from experience, and we learn predominantly, effectively through positive experience. And we can create those positive experiences through our mind, which is key. So by visualizing over and over again, we become hardwired to succeed. They used to say before the 60s that the first 5 to 7 years of our life, the child was faster than man, conventional psychology, that was it. Your pathways are all formed. Yet they found beyond the 60s that neuroplasticity, the brain can rewrite itself. And one of the ways to rewrite itself is through new experiences. So if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always got. What I'm suggesting to do is to do something different, push the boat out, and you'll get new results. And through those experiences, we'll learn more. Because we learn through association. Just like, for example, if you touch a hot stove, if you don't like the sensation of touching a hot stove, you won't put your hand back there anymore. Okay, so creating positive experiences goes a long way to build that confidence as well. Yeah, that's a different seminar for a different day. I'm just illustrating how powerful this is, and I've had the privilege to work with many people in business, in sports, across a broad range of areas, and sometimes it's this technique, these techniques, the simplest techniques are the most effective. I can think of an occasion where there was a young lad who played for Macclesfield Football Club, and he was in the final year of his apprentice, and he had an injury. He had Osgood-Schlatter disease. Those of you who know what Osgood-Schlatter disease is, a condition that affects training. It's debilitating. He couldn't train very often. And for a young person to be told that in the final year of his apprenticeship is devastating, because that final year of his apprenticeship is when he gets told when he gets the contract. So his whole career rests on that. And it's been pretty challenging. You can imagine the psychological impact of being told, the uncertainty of not knowing when the condition is going to go, how bad it's going to get, how it's going to impact the training. So all these things you've got to take into consideration, not to mention the outcome of wanting to be a professional footballer and your whole life ahead of that. So his dad took him to me and says, can you help him? And so one of the ways we can help is to do visualization. You can visualize the techniques, kicking a ball, using the right foot, the left foot, heading it, visualizing the games, and in between he needs to link with the physiotherapist and do as much as he can training-wise, where he can, listen to his body, understand his body. When he's struggling to train, or even when he can train, just do as much as he can through imagery and visualization rehearsal. And he took it all on board, and he did it, and he emailed me or texted me. His dad actually texted me a couple of years later saying that he actually got the contract in the end, which was fantastic. They were grateful for the work I did. I'm not suggesting that the work he did with me was the be-all end-all to get the contract or not, but what I would say is I'm sure it didn't do him any harm. So an amazing thing happened as well, by the way. He'd actually improved more than almost anybody else technically by visualising and mental rehearsal. So it shows how powerful it is. And he improved a lot because we had ways to quantify his improvement, how many times he would kick the ball out of 10, hit a certain target, left foot, right foot, heading the ball, all that sort of stuff really. And I suppose if you're presenting or doing interviews, you can grade yourself as well, out of 10. You can say, well, you know what would you give yourself for your presentation out of 10? You might say 7 out of 10, you aspire to get the 10, and to get the 10, I need to improve in these areas. And you can visualize those areas. Or in an interview, you might say, okay, I felt the interview, I did well, I give myself 7 out of 10, I want to get to 10, but to get to 10 I need to improve these areas. If we're not improving, we're going backwards, we're standing still. My philosophy in life is to continuously improve and be forward thinking, which is obviously important to do that. So it's a very powerful process that we can use, and we can use this process. It's user friendly, it's easy to use, as you've seen. And I've demonstrated, and in my experience of working with many people across a broad range of areas, I've seen just how powerful this process can be. And as I said earlier, you get out what you put in. The more you can do it, the more time you've got to dedicate yourself to a certain task or a certain outcome, the more successful you're going to be. I guess you've got to prioritise in your own life what you want to achieve. But what I want to do, just to conclude the actual seminar, because we're coming to the end of our seminar, and I'm going to give you my contact details shortly. I'm going to give you my contact details shortly. You can email me if you can cover tonight, send me an email, or if you want any resources, you can email me. What I want to do, just to conclude the seminar, is just run through that process again. But I want you to run through it and choose an outcome coming up. So let's run through it one more time to embed the learning before we close for this evening. So once again, choose an outcome, something you've got coming up, a presentation, an interview, a meeting, anything really. And just come up with a script in your own mind. But you might choose something that you've done in the past, you'd like to improve. If you're struggling, what you can do, and what I have done sometimes with certain people when I did help people do presentation interviews, I'll get, for example, videos on YouTube, watch other presenters, and show my client, and they can model that. And I'm not mimicking, I'm not suggesting I mimic anybody, but what we do is we learn subjectively, and then we can incorporate that objectively what the person does, and then become our own unique self. So when I'm teaching someone in sport, we might watch someone take a free kick. Yes, they're different physiologically than my performer, yet it's saying that what we can do is learn the basics of the actual process. In an interview, you can watch someone. So we watch and learn. So surround yourself with excellence, and you become excellent. Challenge yourself, test yourself, surround yourself with people who push you. If you stay in that comfort zone, you might be the best person in your group, yet you'll never improve. It makes sense to go out there and get involved in groups where you challenge yourself and you improve all the time, and you learn all the time. It's always good to celebrate your successes, but keep improving. So sometimes you might need a temple of excellence. So once again, I want you to just close your eyes, really relax, and just visualize the process of achieving your outcome. Maybe step 1, step 2, step 3, with your eyes closed. Think of your script, see yourself while watching a TV screen. Notice what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what it's like to achieve the outcome. Perfect the image, be a director of your own film, your sound, your visual images, the colours, the feelings. When you've got it perfect, step into it and live it like the here and now. Take your time. Notice what you see, what you hear, what you feel. You want to rehearse your questions or rehearse your presentation. Just focus and think of 3 scenarios. We're going to use that skill, technique or process and embed it in your unconscious mind. Now having done that, gradually come back to the here and now, in your own time, in your own pace. Fantastic. Fantastic. Mental rehearsal will give you the best possible chance to succeed. Like I said earlier, with all things being equal, to achieve consistent results, the person who visualizes and the person who puts the most effort in is the person who will reap the most rewards out, which obviously is key. Feel free to contact me on info @excel with NLP.com. That's info@excel with NLP.com. Or you can follow me on my own Twitter @Jim Petruzzi, P-E-T-R-U-Z-Z-I. That's @Jim Petruzzi, J-I-M-P-E-T-R-U-Z-Z-I. Send me an email. I'm more than happy to send you any resources of what we covered this evening, or if you've got any questions, comments, otherwise, you can email me on Facebook or through email, or send me a message through social media. Do get in touch.